Thank you for joining us for Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire.
Liar, liar. Oh, you don't ever tell the truth. Liar, liar. Can't nobody see your vibe.
Do you remember when you were back in school seeing patients during your third or fourth year? You would go into the room, take a case history on a patient. They really wouldn't say much to you. Maybe they'd say they had one thing going on with them, but everything else was fine, pretty much unremarkable. You do your eye exam, go report to your supervisor, and they'd come in to check the patient after, and the patient would go on this 10 to 15 minute storytelling rant about how they have all these things wrong with their eyes and history, and pretty much makes you sit there and feel like you weren't even there to begin with, you know? I'm sure we've all felt like that in our past history back in graduate school, whether it was optometry or ophthalmology. These are things that happen, and you're sitting there trying to decide, did the patient lie to me? You almost feel like somebody did something to you intentionally, to make you look bad. I want to thank everybody for their shares, your emails, and your comments. Please share this out. We really appreciate everyone's support over these last few weeks. Keep the questions coming in. And, we wanted to touch upon this because it is something that affects us on a day-to-day aspect of being either a business owner or an optometrist, about what we're telling ourselves and our staff as we go forward. So, I'd like to start out reflecting upon how I've lied to myself in the past. I used to make lists for things, to-do lists. We all make to-do lists, and I used to make one for the business, and I would write things on the list, and the next week I would look at the list, and I would rewrite the same things I didn't accomplish the week before. And this would go on for time after time years ago. And I would actually get to the pad and write things down, and I'd be like, I know I'm not going to get this thing accomplished, And I was basically lying to myself about what I was going to get done for the good of the company and the business, And I think we all need to take time and reflect on, what are we actually going to accomplish by getting those tasks done? What's the goal, right? So, is the goal to increase business or increase your staff experience or client experience, whatever it is, but you need to keep the goal in mind and only write things down for me that I knew I physically would get done, instead of wasting time. And, that's helped me a lot over the years, and I think it's helped us as we've tried to prioritize what to really work on, because you can only get a couple of things really truly accomplished from A to Z, over a certain period of time. So set your priorities a little bit, and as a business owner, we've gotten a lot of questions from people about online reviews. How do we handle online reviews? And we'll talk about the detail of how we handle those at a later time, but what we started to do years ago is we started to listen to our online reviews. Okay, as crazy as that sounds, we started to listen and learn from those, because there is some truth, whether you like it or not, about your business hidden in those reviews. And you might sit there and say the patient is completely wrong, they weren't in the right mindset and whatever, but I stopped, and I think John and I together with our team, our management team, started listening to these surveys and reviews, and we started to act on that to make our business better. And it's really set ourselves apart. We've gotten so many great reviews in the last couple of years, and it's based on just feedback and us starting to be more open, and me not thinking as a business owner, I know everything, right? And I for a while, I always thought that. I'm not going to lie. I thought I knew everything. You come out of school, you get that degree, and you're like, I'm all set. I'm good. Absolutely not. Because there's so much more to it that we've learned over the 17 years. And, I'll say one more thing that I think is important to think about is being truthful with yourself on your role as a business owner or as a provider, as a doctor. And that could be a revealing conversation with yourself. You know, do you want to be a doctor and just see patients? Do you want to be a business owner and a doctor? Do you want to wear multiple hats? Do you need to wear multiple hats? Because this is where I feel that ophthalmologists set themselves apart as opposed to optometrists. You know, they come out of school, they want to see patients. They let the business managers, the financial people, the staff run the day-to-day company. They're still the owner. They still provide the vision, but then they go and perform that role in seeing the patients, and they let everybody else do their job to the best of their ability. Where I think as optometrists, and usually in the past, because we've been smaller as businesses, I think we need to get over that hump a little bit and get ourselves to thinking in a larger scale. How do I scale my business? How do I grow the business? Not me, for example, Dr. Colonna, how do I get as most important as I possibly can? Because in today's society, that's not where we're going with things for healthcare. So, what do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I mean, we preach this a lot, and it's taken years to really sink in. But a lot of really digging in and finding what the real truth is. As business owners, we are all for the truth until it's something that we don't agree with. And then all of a sudden the truth, we might augment it kind of, or shift it a little bit, or not believe in it as much, even though it still is true. So one thing I think that we're unaware of at times is how we act around our staff, and the things that we implement, the systems we implement, the rules we implement in our office. Who does that go for? Does it go for the staff? Does it go for you as the business person? Well, it should go for everyone. And again, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and we will say something different at times than what we tell our staff. And we will break our own rules at times. So, for instance, one example could be where we tell our staff, this is rule 1, 2, and 3 that we're going to do when a certain patient comes in for a contact lens fit. And then we get into the room and we know the patient, and maybe you're a friend of theirs. Or maybe it's a situation where the patient's a little unhappy for some reason. And the patient wants something done outside of those rules. Although the patient already spoke to your staff about those rules, and now want to speak to you as the doctor to try to get the answer changed. So you being the doctor, change the answer because you don't want to deal with an unhappy patient, which in a sense, we want, the patient is always right, but at the same time, you can't undermine your staff by telling them to do one thing and then you going essentially behind their back, even though we don't think of it like that, and telling the patient, okay, you know what, don't worry about what the staff said, they don't know, I'll take care of it. So what you're doing there is A, you're pretty much undermining your staff, and B, you're setting up the patient to think that your staff is incompetent. So you really have to be aware of the rules that you are putting in place. And then if you go and break your own rules, that sets up for a negative office culture in general. So be aware of what you say, to your staff. Be aware of the rules and follow your own rules. Don't be the one that is the exception. You should be the one out of anyone always following the rules, especially, you're the owner. So that's that. From another standpoint is the patient. And again, the patient is always right. We want the patient to feel as though they're always right. Now, there are these exceptions where, they could be demeaning to the staff. I can tell you that I paid a patient one time to please leave the office because they were so demeaning to the staff. I actually took my wallet out and gave them money and said, "Here, please don't come back." But they were literally just berating my staff in front of me. So, you do want to make sure that your staff knows that you have their back. That's very true. But also, the staff needs to understand that for the vast majority of time, the patient is always right. You don't want to be picking a fight with a patient over something ridiculous that you can fix in 5 seconds. So turn those things, those situations, which are a lot of the time they start negative. Obviously, the patient is unhappy with something. But most of these situations can be solved very, very easily. And a lot of the times the doctors, we are so in our day, and, it's that day-to-day grind that we go through, that it's tough to not be emotional over these things and to look at it from a business standpoint and not an emotional standpoint, especially when someone comes out and sometimes attacks you kind of personally, or sometimes they're just upset, but you think it's a personal attack. Well, you can't go about it in that way. We have to always look at it from a business growth standpoint. 99% of the time, we could look at it like that. So make sure you're making positive choices. Think before you react. And that's, as I think we get older and more mature, it is easier to do that. I think, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of times as younger docs, you tend to be a little more emotional, and then you learn over time. And sometimes that's just a learning experience that we have to go through. I know we've probably done a few things early on that we wish we could have taken back, but you do want to reflect on things before you react. Just make the issue right. Solve the problem, make it right for the patient, and then go from there.
Yeah. And it's funny you said about things that we did and we wish we could take back. And, thinking about who we partnered with in the past and do their values align with ours is really, really important with, are they being truthful as a vendor, as a partner, and we did something where you might have heard in the past, though, that it's our $90,000 mistake when we purchased an EHR system and servers and everything, and we launched it, and the state of Rhode Island was going to reimburse us, I think, $60,000 over the course of a number of years, and when it came time to submit those invoices, they came back to us and said there was no money there for them to reimburse us the $60,000. So you can imagine how we felt, right? So we kind of partnered with the state on reimbursing for our EHR. They used the money for something else, so we got zero, right?
Yeah.
So it was a $90,000 mistake. Did it hurt? Yes. Were we really upset? Without a doubt. And yeah, after taxes, it's only a $45,000 loss. But that still doesn't matter. It's still a $45,000 loss, no matter how you look at it. But we learned that we needed to be really specific about who we were talking with and who we trusted our business with, and it really brought things to light years ago. And this is when we first started out. So it was a big hurt for us because we thought we were getting that money. And experience and results is what sets you apart. So anybody you're working with, make sure you talk to them before and say, what have you done? What are you saying you could do? Have you done it yourself that set yourself apart? And there's this quote that John had brought to my attention, and I just thought it was awesome when he read it to me the first time about, beware of those who criticize from the stands, yet have never played on the field. And you know, both of us are huge sports fans. There's a lot of similarities in running a business and an organization, a sports team that you could learn from. But, you know, for people that are going out there talking about, I'm this or I'm that, well, ask them, have they done it themselves? Because there's a lot of people out there, especially in today's world and social media, where they're saying they've done things and they're trying to get you to work with them, and they haven't done it themselves. So I want you guys to, you know, have a great one. We really appreciate, like I said, all of the comments, the shares. Please share this out in your messages. Send your questions to our team so we can incorporate them into our future lives. If there's anything we could do, you know where to reach us. And you guys have a great week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Liar, liar. Oh, you don't ever tell the truth. Liar, liar. Can't nobody see your fireproof.
Follow you to dust, leaving footprints on the clouds as we're walking home. Iron hearts all turn to rust by tears and the days on a diamond.